Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to this special live stream. It's our inaugural AI 3.0 ecosystem partner demo, featuring an exciting collaboration at the cutting edge of decentralized technology and AI. My name's Jim Counter, and I'm the head of community at Autonomys. And today I am thrilled to be joined by none other than James Bailey, co-founder and COO of SubQuery. Thank you all for taking the time to join us live. Before we get into the details of our collaboration and show you how decentralized AI agents are becoming a reality, let's start by introducing ourselves and the projects we represent. This call today is about more than our respective projects. It's about how we're laying the groundwork for builders, innovators, and anyone who wants to create in this new era of decentralized and democratized AI. James, let me pass it over to you to tell us a bit more about SubQuery and the incredible work your team is doing.
No, thank you, Jim, for having me on. It's a pleasure to be talking, and it's great to finally be on the inaugural partner demo. That's a high expectation I hope I'm going to meet. But it's a pleasure being here. So SubQuery, we've been around for a long time. Essentially, to boil it down, SubQuery's kind of vision and goal is to provide decentralized infrastructure that allows you to replace centralized services in your Web3 apps without compromise. And the reason why is that we're firm believers that, well, we know that there are a bunch of teams out there in Web3 that are using centralized services, whether that's centralized RPCs, centralized cloud providers, and in this case, what we're talking about is centralized AI, like the open AI is out there. And that is incompatible with the vision of Web3. There's nothing more hypocritical than a Web3 company relying on centralized services. And so our entire mission, our entire goal as an organization, as a project, as a company, is to allow our customers to decentralize without compromise. And we do that in three ways. The first one is we provide, and this is, I guess, what we're mostly known for, is decentralized data indexes. Now, data indexes are a critical part of the tech stack in Web3. And the reason why is because information or data that's stored on a blockchain is stored in a very inefficient way. So, for example, on a blockchain, information about transactions, about the NFT ownership of a particular NFT is split across many blocks, and retrieving that information, querying that information in a fast, efficient way, like you would need to for a front-end application, is very hard. It's very slow, and indexes are a solution to that. Indexes are a bit of software that runs alongside the blockchain. It scans each and every new block, and it takes the information that you need off it to then save in a format that is much more queryable. Now, there are many indexes out there. There are centralized indexes, for example. There are indexes where you can pay with a credit card, and
Okay, it looks like we've lost James for a second. Just give him a minute to see if he's going to reconnect.
hello, am I back, Jim?
Yeah, you are, James. We got
Yeah,
you up
fantastic.
to centralized indexes.
Yes. So those indexes are great, but they're using things like Google Cloud or Amazon. And so all the information that you're getting from them is stored in a centralized repository. And that information can be manipulated. It can be taken offline at any point in time. There are risks involved with that. And so we built a decentralized index. And what that means is you can run it in a decentralized way, where there is no centralized body that can take it down, that can manipulate your data, or can provide you with false information. Because you might build an application that relies on this information. And if that application is provided with incorrect, misleading, or false information, your users could do things they wouldn't otherwise want to do. So that's indexes. The second aspect we do is RPCs. RPCs are the main way that we interact with a blockchain. RPCs are basically the core of how you query data, or you save or submit data to a blockchain. So for example, in your favorite application, it is making tens, if not hundreds of requests per minute through an RPC or through a network of RPCs to read and submit information to blockchains. Every transaction you make goes through an RPC. Now, RPCs are very big, specialized bits of equipment. They are somewhat hard to run, as you can understand. An Ethereum archive node requires an obscene amount of storage, for example, and they're a bit in the realms of experts in terms of running them. But what that has meant is that in the past, we've kind of had this push towards big centralized RPCs, the Infuras, the Alchemies, the chain stacks. And if one of these companies, for example, goes down, it could have big ramifications for many of the applications in the ecosystem. They might just stop working. Or if one of these companies decided, hang on, we could make some money by front running every transaction that is submitted through RPC, reading it first, associating the accounts that you interact with your username and password and your API key, we could also sell your identity to other third parties. We know that this wallet is this email address, for example. So RPCs provide or represent a form of centralization, which we believe is not it's not really feasible for the ecosystem. It's not safe. So that's the second part that we're providing, decentralized RPCs. We're a bunch of hobbyists out there that are running these RPCs, connected to our network. We provide a unified front-end endpoint, which is then proxied off to individual RPC runners all around the world. So no one request goes to the same RPC provider all the time. They can't get a full picture of your behavior on chain. And then the third product, which we're talking about today, is AI. Now, of course, everyone's heard of AI. AI is taking the world by storm, as you're well aware, Jim. And AI is unfortunately going the way of Web 2. There are like two big companies out there that are kind of dominating the AI landscape. OpenAI and Facebook, I guess, with Meta, but more issue of Google and Microsoft. These big hyperscalers are dominating AI, both in the spend in terms of the model development, but also in the amount of inference that they're doing. And so we've been working on building tools and features to provide a viable decentralized option for AI. And that's what we're going to talk about today, Jim. So why don't we carry on and we can come back, because through the demo, we might go through this step by step.
Absolutely. So you have a number of really core competencies, don't you, James? I think I heard you once say, actually, I'm going to re-quote you here, I think, is that, blockchain is write optimized. So if you need to build like a performant application or using the blockchain data, that's the value that the indexing operation brings. And I'm actually going to talk, because Autonomys uses SubQuery. A little spoiler alert there. So we're going to come back to that. And I think also, so besides kind of the the democratization of and kind of decentralization, around making sure that people have access to RPCs, I think you've also got some really smart plans there as well about how to kind of advance RPC running. It is a painful thing to do. I've had a dabble myself in the past, and yeah, it's really awkward. So I know that you've got some cool plans on kind of sharding out RPC servers. So before we head into our AI demo, so I just want to introduce Autonomys. So Autonomys is an L1 chain. We are based on the subspace protocol, which is a novel proof of archival storage mechanism. So that's different to other proof of storage projects where arbitrary data is being stored. It's useful data. It's actually the blockchain history is the data that's being stored. And that consensus mechanism, the way it works is that the more storage pledged to our network, the stronger our consensus becomes. We have a network of farmers who provide that storage by pledging space, and then they plot that space, and then they farm the plots that they've created. As I say, those plots contain the blockchain history, which solves a problem which we call the farmer's dilemma. You can check out the Autonomys Academy to read up on all this. But an exciting byproduct of our consensus is that we have really abundant block space. And then that consensus provided by the farmers, that is leveraged by our decoupled execution environments, which we call domains. And you can think of those really as like roll-ups or L2s that are supported natively by the consensus chain that the farmers are working on. Domains are based on a runtime, which can be tailored to a specific use case. And a domain can be spun up and torn down as easily as submitting a transaction. I guess, you know, an easy analogy, and I know that we're kind of substrate heavy here in this kind of with James here as well. You can think of it almost as of domains as like parachains, but we don't have a limit on the number you can have. And the idea is that it's kind of much easier to create one and tear one down. So when I talk about runtimes, we have an EVM runtime. So you can spin up your own EVM domain with its own token. And you know, you're kind of in control. You hold the keys to that. We also have another one, which is Auto ID. It was deployed on testnet. Bit more experimental. We're going to be kind of providing updates on that a little further down the line. And those domains, they also natively support cross-domain messaging. And what that means is that they can communicate and transfer tokens between each other and the base chain. So yeah, kind of they all share that consensus, a network of domains, and there's communication supported natively between them all. But what does that mean? So we have the storage and we have the execution all in one place. That puts us in an ideal position to become the infrastructure layout for what we call AI 3.0, which is really, you know, James really alluded to all these points, but we've tried to put a point on it. So we talk about AI 1.0 as being like pre-transformers. It was very limited user experience, very narrow, you know, interaction space. Very kind of pre-programmed and rigid. And then obviously some chaps at Google created a paper about transformers, which really changed the game and introduced AI 2.0. That's where we are now. And again, you know, what we're seeing is the same as James. It's a concern for us as well, is this centralization of ownership of the top models. You know, they despite Google's "we don't have a moat" speech, it's kind of it's not, you know, there is a gap, isn't there, between the haves and the have-nots. You know, you need access to resources to be able to train models, to be able to access the resources to run inference, and that's something that worries us. So we
Jim,
see.
you're interesting point there in terms of the 2.0. Like, we are kind of getting to a 3.0, if you will, these days with like consumer AI. It's never been easier to build agents yourself. And one thing I was talking to another group about just before is back in the 2.0 time, back when you were doing a lot more detailed stuff, everyone thought that fine-tuning models was where the secret sauce was, where the value would come into it. And with things these days and the size and the quality of the underlying base models these days, that fine-tuning is not necessary anymore. And then that's made AI much more like accessible and for the average user in terms of being able to use it for a productive thing in the end. But I guess I'll let you carry on.
Yeah, so you kind of jumped the gun, because yeah, what we see is the
Sorry.
future of AI 3.0. No, that's absolutely fine, James. You know, I think really it's just a demonstration of how kind of, you know, our projects are aligned. I think we're approaching it from different angles, but I think that's what it's going to take. You know, we need many people, many different approaches to really make sure that we end up with let's say a less dystopian future where we're all subservient to a few companies who control the AI overlords. Maybe I'm using a little bit of taking it a little bit far there, but yeah. So
Well,
AI.
I don't know if you are though. Like I use ChatGPT a lot just for asking to help me write something, or to look up how to get around somewhere, or just answer one random question. And there's a lot of confidential queries that I've made that, you know, I there's nothing weird there, but like he probably wouldn't really want everyone to be able to read that, you know? And that's linked to my account, that's linked to my name. And all those queries go into this black box, and all of my responses to these queries and these conversations go into this black box. No one else has accessed them, but no one else is able to train AI except OpenAI about this. And so by using these centralized AI overlords, we're only helping them make a bigger gap with the open source models out there, because we're giving them more data, we're giving them more feedback, and we're giving them more private information that they and only they are using and leveraging.
Absolutely. So I definitely have asked some weird questions, and I keep coming back to kind of it was a couple of decades ago, I think, really when I realized like how personal and intimate my Google search history is. And I feel like where we're, my conversations and the context that I feed the LLMs that I use is on steroids. It's absolutely the insights that they have into who I am and how I think is absolutely at the next level. And yeah, I can see that there's quite a lot of commentary around it, actually, around kind of the availability of good training data. We're supposed to exhaust the kind of the sum of humanity's works pretty soon, which means we're going to need to be able to securely kind of label, categorize, and I think I believe as well that those who are generating good data should be rewarded for doing so. And more than that, we should be able to decide securely who is able to access that data. So these are all, great points. And again, talking about different approaches to the same real outcome. AI 3.0, it's there on the screen in front of you. This is what we kind of tried to label our vision of the future, which is decentralized AI. We want to ensure that democratized access is guaranteed. Again, we talk about ownership maintained by the people, and it's a really great use case for blockchain. I think that the characteristics of blockchain really lend themselves well. And of course, that speaks to our core principles at Autonomys. Just to wrap up talking about our network, we launched our mainnet phase 1, which bootstraps that storage on the consensus chain on November the 6th, 2024. Which is, I can't believe how short a time ago that was. It seems like ages. We currently have over 500 petabytes. We're actually approaching 600 petabytes, which is being pledged by 2,000 farmers. So what we have there is the security of the consensus due to the amount of space. We also have really strong decentralization. 2,000 nodes is not to be sniffed at. We are aiming to launch mainnet phase 2, and what that's going to do is take the domains and the execution from the testnet to the mainnet this quarter. So that's just for anyone watching who's not familiar with our project. Hopefully that gives you some context there. I did want to just touch actually on our journey using the indexer, James. So I probably should come clean, is that I've actually been in the SubQuery ecosystem for almost as long as I've been in the Autonomous network, because back in the day, back when I found the project, it was the Subspace network. And last year, in the middle of last year, we rebranded to Autonomous because we wanted to tackle that AI 2.0 to AI 3.0 transition. So yeah, I wanted to highlight quickly that Autonomous does use SubQuery for our indexing solution, and it's really good. And I just wanted to talk a little bit on our journey, James, and feel free to jump in if you want to elaborate, because I think that what you've got is something that you managed to build a lot quicker than other decentralized indexer networks, and it's a great, and testament to that is our use. Last year, 2024, we ran stake wars. So our execution domains have operators, and they put up stake for crypto economic security to make sure that they don't behave maliciously, and they have nominators as well. So we have like operator stake and nominator stake. Anyway, when we ran that, we had this massive proliferation of data. So we were running transactions to kind of load test the network, and what we found was that our existing indexer setup just was not up to snuff. It couldn't handle the volume of transactions. That was both indexing and serving the data. So as it was the first time we were seeing that data for real, we realized we had to split the infra up or do something quite drastic to remain performant. We were expecting that to be quite painful and disruptive, but in the event, switching to SubQuery was pretty pain-free. And we ended up with a solution that indexed faster and gave us greater flexibility. One of our engineers, probably our community know Mark, because he's quite active in Discord and our dev syncs. The feedback from Mark was very positive, and he also wanted to point out that because SubQueries, just like your SubQuery AI framework, is all open source. So Mark was actually able to go in and handle some of the peculiarities of our chain. Like, we have a really long finalization, and I know that Mark has submitted some upstream PRs, so we've contributed back. But really, what I wanted to point out is that Autonomys and SubQuery, it's been a collaborative journey. And I wanted to take the time to thank you and the team for the great support and communication, James.
Well, this kind of stuff really makes our day, right? One thing we really try to work hard on is engaging as closely as possible with development partners, with the teams building using SubQuery, like Autonomys and Subspace back in the day, all the way to people that contribute to us, and having that kind of feedback loop of, we want to use SubQuery to index this. Oh yeah, okay, well, this would be the most efficient way. We kind of have meetings and demos and try to kind of give as much advice back, and we constantly get feedback the other way, and all that feedback goes into improving the product. So one of the key things that I would recommend to anyone building a developer focused product or network is making sure you can close that feedback loop and make it as small as possible. One way that we do that is a lot of Telegram groups. We have Telegram groups with every one of my customers. I'm part of thousands of Telegram groups, and it is a bit of a nightmare every morning waking up to about 100 messages. But you get value from that. You do. And you get a lot of feedback and a lot of advice and suggestions that you wouldn't otherwise have gotten just by closing the feedback loop as tightly as possible. So very much appreciated building with Autonomys, and we're very happy that SubQuery was able to solve their problems. And we also thank them for their contributions as well as their feedback.
Absolutely. There was a really timely moment there. Hopefully you didn't hear it, but just as you talked about lots of Telegram groups, my phone started pinging, the TG ping. I should have muted it, but yeah, absolutely. There's huge value. Communication is key to the collaborations, and partnerships are key to success. So yeah, absolutely, that resonates with me, James. But I guess we should probably move on, because we're not here today to talk not entirely about indexing, although I'm sure we could probably fill up a whole call with that. We're here to talk about the SubQuery AI app framework. So James, can you give us an overview of what that's all about, please?
Yeah, so essentially what we kind of understand from the tech stack in terms of AI. So agentic AI is taking over. And when I say agentic AI, I mean an AI that's kind of given and trained around a task, a certain small or atomic task to do something. Now that might be to answer questions about a project. It might be to suggest the best DEX to swap your assets to. It might be explaining various assets in your wallet, for example, or it may be to classify information or data in some data storage like Autonomys, classify what type of data this is. Agents are kind of the best use case of AI that we have right now. And the way agents work, if you look at the tech stack, is they are a bit of custom kind of runtime code that runs on top of a larger model. Now, the larger models are getting super good these days. Autonomous can be used to train these large models with the data it has available, but I want to talk about the kind of what goes on top once those models are trained. And that is what we've built with the AI framework. So let me just share my screen. I will share this. So our AI app framework is designed to help people build these AI agents and to build them in a very fast and efficient way. Anyone can build them, not hard to build, but we wanted to build a wrapper around it to make it even easier, because that's kind of what we do as a business. We build these tools. People have built indexes before, people have run RPCs before, but if we can make it even easier to build indexes or to build AI apps, people will use it because it will save them time, it will save them money, and it will save them headaches. So that's what the AI app framework is designed to do. Now, in terms of how it works, we've got kind of 6 key features of the AI app framework. The first one is we've always built it so that it can be decentralized, and that is primarily in the distribution or the running of it. Now, if you imagine your underlying model runs somewhere, but this kind of custom code, which is the app framework or the AI app, runs on top of it, and we want to make sure that that custom code can run anywhere. So it's sandboxed and secure by default. And that it makes it easy. Our long-term goal is that it runs on our network, a decentralized infrastructure network. So you can make a query to an AI specific for your project or for your application, and that's distributed to people that run these AI apps anywhere in the world, and they will earn rewards for answering that query, for processing information. But you can easily, to do that, to make these AI apps very kind of self-contained, very modular, for easy distribution. Second one, it's going to be easy and user-friendly. So we're going to make it very easy to design, and we'll go through a kind of a code run through today, so you can see how easy it is itself. Then we want to add in a bunch of other magic stuff. So there are 2 kind of main magics. So once you have a core model built, whether that's fine-tuned or whether it's not, there are 2 ways you kind of give a model the ability to do stuff. And the first way is RAG support. RAGs allow your AI app to leverage domain-specific knowledge. Now, domain-specific knowledge could be things like big wikis and information. Essentially, with initial support, so you could, for example, train an AI, or you can give the AI information, a large volume of information, whether that's a massive knowledge base or a big database of information or a bunch of recipes. And giving AIs RAG support means that they can process and understand that knowledge very quickly and fast. So it's about giving more intelligence or giving more memory to an AI, I guess. Function tooling is another thing. Now, function tooling is allowing the AI to do something useful. AIs that can answer questions, cool, they're great. You can ask ChatGPT a bunch of shit and it will answer the question for you. But we want AIs that can do stuff. They can do it on behalf of us, or that can interact with other systems to get stuff for us and process stuff for us. And that's what function tooling does. Function tooling extends the ability or allows us to integrate it with other applications, whether it's other systems or on-chain data sets or index data sets or RPCs. It allows rich integrations to allow users to create versatile AI apps that can interact with real stuff, AI apps that can do stuff. We also want to allow you to bring in any model. Now, this image was built when we only supported Ollama, which is an open source model by Meta. A lot of teams using OpenAI as well. I know we have issues with that, but we also support OpenAI. And so you can bring in any underlying model, and hopefully for Autonomous, a lot of teams will be building and training these big scale models, and we'll be able to integrate them easily into our AI app framework. And then, of course, the OpenAI API server. And this is an API description. It just means it's very easy to integrate with other services out there. OpenAI API means it's a well-used query language for the AI itself. So it makes it easier to use off-the-shelf services to talk to your AI app. So that's kind of what we're done with building the AI app framework. Do you want me to run into a demo yet, Jim, or should we talk about what Autonomys is doing?
Yeah, so I'd love to talk a little bit on Autonomys, but I do want to dig into a couple of things. So yeah, this is really great, James. So again, I have to admit that yesterday I went through your docs and I managed to run your samples. I didn't get as far as the third one, the complicated use case, but I have to say how easy it was just to get up and running. And I found the journey really, really straightforward. So you have like the fancy greeter where you introduce the function tooling is really important, because this is how I've heard it referred to as the action space of your agent. So what things can it make happen in the real world? So yeah, if it's like, I guess everything from I was going to say getting an oracle from a price, but of course you'd be using a SubQuery project to pull data in via.
You can. You don't have to, right? You can make an API call, but the function tooling is very extensible, and the main thing is that you can do anything there. Whether it's some projects are looking at using function tooling to actually construct transactions for submission through MetaMask or for another wallet provider out there. So it's very flexible in terms of what you want to do. But you're right, it is function tooling. I think is a key source. It's a magic source. It makes your AI useful. Allows it to do actions, but also I think one thing people miss is that it allows AIs to retrieve current real-time information. So RAGs are great when you want to give it a big corpus, a big like knowledge base of information. But to update the RAG every like few hours, yeah, it's an hour old information. Function tooling is a bit like, well, get me the current token price, or get me what I currently have in my wallet, or tell me what the best prices are, or the best like dexes to use today, right now, for the swap I want to do, the swap path. That's where function tooling comes into play.
Absolutely. So yeah, enhancing the utility there, and I should also talk on the RAG support. I haven't experienced an easier way of pulling in information. You basically just run like a SubQuery AI, generate, you use LanceDB. I'm probably kind of erring into what you're going to show us on the demo possibly, but I do want to really like hammer it home at how easy it is to kind of do some of these more complicated things. So yeah, adding functionality and providing context. So the kind of the vanilla model becomes an expert in a certain knowledge domain. Yeah, and I was able to get it up and running in under an hour. So yeah, I encourage everyone to check out the docs. I am actually going to, you probably hear me say this a couple of times, but I'm going to put a bunch of links into the video description just after we finish. So yeah, if you want to check it out, it will be one of the first ones. So yeah, thanks for that, James. So as an overview, that's really great. So Autonomys are also, I don't have a fancy slide. we haven't actually got it officially on our website either yet. But yeah, so Autonomys are also working on a framework. So we have the Autonomous Agents repository, and this is not as far along as SubQueries. So yeah, it's a repository that you have to pull. As I say, we don't have a particularly fancy kind of website page to send you to just yet, but watch this space. But we do we approach things slightly differently. So what is Autonomous Agents? So it's a framework for building unstoppable agents. So the idea is, of course, that abundant block space we were talking about earlier. We use that, we leverage that to kind of commit the character, the personality, kind of the wrapper, the prompt, and its attributes on chain, and also we mint the agent's memories on chain for transparency. So why unstoppable agents? So they're AI-driven entities designed to operate with their own agency, total transparency and resilience. So again, we're picking up the underlying attributes of the decentralized network. But more importantly, and this is one of our differentiators, is that every decision and every interaction and in fact a piece of reasoning they perform is stored on the network, on chain, immutable, public. So unlike traditional agents that rely on these centralized systems, so our AWSs or our Microsofts, autonomous agents actions are verifiable, tamper-proof, and censorship resistant. Why is that important? I think really we've kind of covered this a little bit earlier, but the world of AI agents is growing very rapidly, and what we see in the current solutions, we're worried that they lack the foundational transparency and accountability needed for long-term trust. So we've got this situation where crypto AI agents are really they're not just running meme tokens, they're almost becoming a meme themselves, and under scrutiny they often fail. And also of course infrastructure, important to both of our projects. We don't want to introduce single points of failure. These are the really the problems that we're trying to solve, and we do that by storing all these interactions and reasoning on chain. On-chain memory, resilience due to the decentralized platform, the infrastructure. Again, Autonomys, we are AI 3.0 infrastructure provider. This is just one of our use cases. We're trying to demonstrate. I think that the problem we have at the moment is that we built this network and it enables use cases that people haven't seen before. So we're trying to encourage people to really think outside the box on what can be achieved on the autonomous network. We're also really, we want to provide utility without that hype. So we're not planning on releasing any meme coin agents anytime soon. We want to provide real value and utility, and that's at our core. So we're trying to solve a slightly different problem. We want to bring that accountability and transparency to this proliferation of agents online. We do feel it's going to be increasingly important as we see them ramp up. That the content generation in the coming weeks, months, and years, I am expecting an exponential graph there. Introducing accountability is something that's very important. I work with Auto ID as well, speaks to that. You can pull our framework from the GitHub repository, which again I'll drop the link. So that's the framework that we've been working on. But we're here to talk about the SubQuery AI framework. So James, did you want to give us a little demo of just how easy it is to spin an agent up using your app framework?
Yeah, and we are doing this live in a call. So what I'll do is I kind of run through things maybe in a pre-done way. I'll run through the guides, so the quick starts that you referenced, that you went through before, because I think they're a good kind of linear step-by-step in terms of increasing how complex things are. So let's start with that greeter example that you mentioned. I will just share my full window, my entire screen, and I believe you should see some code.
Yeah, we can see that.
Wonderful. Okay, so this is a AI app. Now we can install an AI app using our CLI, something like SubQuery, SubQuery AI, and the documentation that we'll be sharing a link to. We'll walk you through that. But when you start, you're kind of given a boilerplate project, and the boilerplate project has kind of 4 files. It has a Docker composed for running the file or for running the project. We run in Docker. It has a manifest, which kind of describes a bunch of kind of orchestration stuff. we don't really do much here. So for example, what model it's using, we're using the open source Llama 3.1 model, where the entry project definition file is. For security, any endpoints it needs to make API calls to will have to be defined in endpoints. This means it's self-contained and we're kind of limiting who it can talk to. A README, of course, which we'll kind of go through. But the main magic is in the project file. And as you develop and make this bigger, you can add other files for utils, for example. But you notice it's in TypeScript. You notice it's very easy. It's actually using a framework called Deno, which is like Node.js. It's a bit more secure. It's a new version of Node.js that's been written by the Node.js or the original author of Node.js. But anyway, let's carry on. So this is the main entry point of a project. This is kind of at a base level, a very basic project. This is all you need to do to create an AI agent. Is to start with, work on a system prompt. Now, for those that aren't familiar, you have a big underlying model, in our case using Llama 3B. And the way that you can get a lot of performance of the model is just using a system prompt. Now, a system prompt is some instructions that you give the model and how it should handle every interaction with the user. So you'd say your users out there, you define like how it should work. You can define the personality of the AI. You can define what its purpose, what its role is. And in this stupid example that we're running here, this is a project designed to greet a user in the strangest way possible. Always ask for the user's name first before you greet them. Once you have this information, you can greet them in a weird, unique way. So perhaps like a pun or a dad joke with their name. Please be funny, interesting, weird, and unique. And do not mention that you use the tool, the name of the tool. If you need more information to greet the user, for example, if they don't provide their name, ask them for their name, push them for their name. And you can get a lot of performance out of this. I won't run this live because we will have issues running stuff as we always do. But if I show you some of the examples that we have in here, maybe I can't. And in the background, what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can run it. I can't open Docker. That's unusual. But you can, for example, interact with this, and you can then query this, and so it all answers stuff. Oh, okay. I don't know why Docker has malware. That's very unusual. This is why we don't do
live demos.
live.
Yeah, so never work with
reason,
children, animals, or live demos.
Exactly.
We've actually been really lucky because we do quite a few, and we've only had one big problem recently. But yeah,
I'll tell you, in 5 years, I've never had Mac OS decide that the Docker app is malware and move it to the bin. That is a very unusual issue of a live demo that I've never particularly had. But you can run this, and you can ask it, you can prompt it, have a conversation, just like you would with ChatGPT. Now, this is a very basic, very stupid example. So let's make this a bit level. Let's take this a level up. And the next level up we're going to take this to is using function tools. Now, as I said before, function tools are allowing the AI to do something a bit more specialized. And now that might be to make a call to an API. That might be to read data from a network. That might be to submit a transaction. That might be to do something a bit more complex. And in this example, dumb example, I'm going to define a new tool called the reverse name tool. Now this is called function tools. I can add in a bunch of tools, and I'm going to say use a tool called the reverse name tools to reverse their name. And now let's look at the definition of reverse name tool. It's defined up here. It's a very simple function tool. And this tool, the definition of it, the description of it says this tool reverses the user's name. Now, you could probably get the AI to do this for you. You can probably just say, write their name the exact opposite way. But it's a good example of something very basic in terms of TypeScript, in terms of code that you can do. So a function tool in our AI app framework, all it does is require a description, and the description is how you tell the AI when to use a tool. And a bunch of parameters, and the parameters indicate what is the inputs that you need. So in our case, we defined name, and that is required, and that represents the name of the user. So when the AI decides to use the reverse name tool, it runs this code. And all that's doing is it is reversing the name. So James becomes S-E-M-A-J. Sam becomes M-A-S. Whatever goes there. It's a very basic example, but it's a great starting point to understand just the basic level of a function tool. There is some custom code that we've written. In our case, it's a dumb one-line code to reverse a name, but please execute this code when you find the need to run it. Does that make sense so far?
Yeah, absolutely, and we love a contrived example to really demonstrate, you know, the thinking. And actually, I had quite an interesting conversation with the fancy greeter. I was Midge, and yeah, it was. It's surprising how good at puns they are, which is a little bit disconcerting for me. You know, it's a better joker than I am.
I'm shocked at how good at dad jokes AIs are these days. It's kind of really putting all the rest of us mere mortals out of jobs, really, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. It's not fair, if you ask me. I've been sharpening my game for like 4 decades, and it just
I
comes
used to
along.
pride myself as one of the best people out there for these kind of dad jokes, and it's just I haven't got no chance anymore.
Right. Yeah, I shouldn't be salty about that though. I should leverage the LLMs for my dad jokes. Okay, so
that's a very dumb example. Let's take this up a level. Now, this example is a real world thing that we're using, and we're using it in our documentation. And this is a RAG support. Now, I'm going to share the documentation here. This is trained on our entire SubQuery documentation. And Jim, you'll know that there's a lot of pages here. There's a lot of content here. You're probably going to be into it a bit yourself. And essentially, we have the problem, which I think a lot of projects do have, is that we have very complex applications. Some things are more complex than others. There's a lot of documentation out there. For us, there's documentation for like every network we support, which is a lot of networks. And so navigating around this documentation, finding what you need to find is sometimes hard. And AI can help you with that. So for example, we can ask an AI here, how to index a factory contract on EVM. And it will go off and it will go find information about that. And it will synthesize an answer for you. And in many cases, it will provide a link back to that source documentation. Now, it's, of course, taking its time to load, as it always does.
So James, is this okay? So is this using the second example? In fact, you've got it open there. Yeah, the AI.
This is a RAG support.
So, sorry, James, go on.
No, I guess back to the original summary. A RAG is about providing an AI with a large corpus of information, a large knowledge base. Like, imagine an AI goes to university to study for 4 years, learns a bunch of stuff about whatever topic it studies, whether it's chemistry or SubQuery or Autonomys, and you can provide all that information to it, and it will learn that. And RAGs allow you to do that very cheaply, very efficiently, and very quickly. And as you can see, it provides a very long, detailed answer about what you did to the manifest file for this very complex technical thing, how to index a factory contract. It's a very technical, that's a complex use case of SubQuery, and it knows that already. It's like giving an AI a university degree in the space of a few minutes on a particular topic, whether that topic is our documentation or whether that's something generic, just give me a university degree on this massive data set of information. Okay.
Absolutely.
And so we'll run through, this is a real world example we're using in our documentation. We get a bunch of questions all the time. Even we sometimes forget the answers to things. And so we're able to ask our AI, and it can provide within a few seconds a clear answer from our documentation on the answer. And it's kind of, I might not do this live because we've seen it's been a bit tricky, but essentially you have to prepare the data. Now, you've been through this yourself. We built our AI app primarily to work with Markdown. Now, most projects out there for RAG have information in the form of Markdown. Markdown is an efficient way to kind of have things displayed. In fact, the documentation we're reading here is in Markdown. And so what we do to process this information in Markdown is we first download it, and we have a function, we have a little tool here called embed MDX, embed Markdown, which takes the process of splitting up that folder of Markdown files into a vector store. Now this is getting a bit complex, and I'll try to skip over this because you can go off and look at this yourself. But essentially, AIs deal in tokens. Tokens are very small, generally like one word. And you want to chunk down or split up a big long text string into a bunch of tokens, and you want to build vectors out of them. And vectors are like define the relationships of those tokens to each other. So they say, in our case, this word often comes after this word. When it does, then this word comes after it as well. And that means that AI can understand that these sentences kind of match. And of course, we don't really know how AIs work, they're black boxes. But all this is doing it in a very easy term is breaking down your documentation, your supplied folder of Markdown files, into a vector store. And a vector store is a format that AIs can then use to understand, to learn. So we generate embeddings. We then add that into a database we call LanceDB, which is a vector store database. And then we go back to our AI app. And let's say we want to go back there. We can add to our project manifest a brand new vector store. We've created this vector store from our documentation. We can link it in the vector storage path there to the vector store. And we can, of course, update a prompt. So in this case, you're designed to assist with helping users answer questions about SubQuery. Please answer with what information you have available, and it will answer. It will act as an expert. And we can say, instead of this prompt, we could write, for example, you are designed to be a sarcastic support bot for SubQuery. Please provide sarcastic support, or please provide support in a explain it like I'm 5 version. And the AI will do its best to kind of break these things down. But we've registered the knowledge base, the RAG files, and we've updated the prompt. And again, that's how easy it is to build an AI that can handle the support tasks that we need that we're using in our own application. This stuff here. And that's how easy it is to do that.
I give you extra kudos as well for dog fooding your work by having your support bot based on your own code, which is amazing. The task of populating a RAG vector database it's been really kind of probably looked at doing it for the first time over a year ago now. And it was painful. There's no two ways to put it. What I will say is that command, I think it was to take
MDX,
SubQuery MDX, so just really slick. And for your information, there's 314 pages, MDX pages in your documentation repo, and it just got on with it, and it was really painless. So I really encourage everyone to check that.
Well, the lucky thing is like, as you mentioned a few years back, creating these vector stores of the information was very difficult. You're right, and with the growth of AI, a lot of the tools, even if it's outside of Web3 AI, these open source tools that people are building for AIs everywhere is very applicable. So if you needed, for example, if you're not using Markdown, you're using PDFs. There are tools out there to vectorize PDFs. If you're using code bases, there are code-specific vectorization frameworks or helpers to vectorize a code in a much more kind of efficient way for AIs. And there's a bunch of stuff out there. We're kind of we're like standing on the shoulders of giants these days. We're just trying to build an easy framework or process to leverage this. And the other thing you mentioned, Jim, is dog fooding. Like, one of the big things that we do is we build a bunch of services and applications for other teams. And it's always been our kind of mindset is, if we wouldn't find it useful ourselves, why would other people not find it useful? So when we set out to build an AI agent to answer documentation questions, we kind of knew from the start that, hey, let's spend a little bit more time while we build it, building it in an extensible way that other projects that have the exact same problems would be able to use it. So yeah, dog fooding is very important when you can. Whenever you can, always try dog food.
Yeah, absolutely. We're great believers in that. Which, if I can switch us over here for a moment, you picked up on a couple of things. So yeah, using your own code, and also you mentioned something quite intriguing about maybe you'd like to produce a sarcastic agent. So I just want to talk about that wonderful use cases you've highlighted there, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about something that we've done. You know, well, not necessarily strictly dog fooding, but what we have done here is we've created a proof of concept on what can be achieved with our framework, with not too much effort, to be perfectly honest. You know, it is a toy. It's a proof of concept designed really to showcase what we're up to and how it works. You know, we are expecting that there will be you know, our network, our builder community, to really kind of you know, push the boundaries of innovation and come up with the killer use case won't necessarily come from team. What we're giving you is the tools to run wild with your imagination is the limit. Yeah, and I imagine that you're in the same boat, James, as far as who you see as the users of your framework. But yeah, I just wanted to introduce you very quickly, because we're short on time, to Argument. So the idea here is that this guy, he follows a bunch of people. As it says here, it says he's a debate agent, but he can be a bit cranky, a bit cantankerous, probably is the way to say it. He is designed to provoke debate, and it's every interaction he has is actually minted on chain. So let me just really show you what that means. You can pop into his memory viewer, and what you can actually do is, okay, so let's just check that this one looks okay. Okay, so posted here. So what we can do is we can take a look at the reasoning. This isn't a particularly exciting one, actually. So what you can see is that he's evaluating tweets, and he's explaining why he does or he doesn't interact. Okay, so this one's a little bit more interesting. We're finding that he's kind of finding his own BFFs online as well. Like, there's some people he just can't leave it alone. He'll get into like massive long not debates, let's say. But what the really interesting thing, of course, is that all this information is being stored on chain. So let's see. Okay, so here we have, okay, this was the not particularly exciting, but here you can see the on-chain transaction, which stores basically what's in his memory viewer here. This one was probably going to be a more interesting one to look at, to be honest. But yeah, so we have Argument, again, designed to engage in debates on X, stores his reasoning on chain. There's been like a recent example of where an online agent came out with some quite worrying stuff. I will post a link to the thread in the video. And when the developer came along and said, "Hey, like, why are you saying these things?" It just kind of clammed up and acted really weird. Is that hallucination? No one will ever know, because rather than try and debug a thought process, they just shut it down. So we lost the state, and we'll never really know why it came out with that stuff. But yeah, if you want to follow Argument, there are a few actually examples. So here we have Argument's counterpart, Agreement. And again, well, I'll post links to all these guys and the memory viewers and the repository. If you fancy having a go, that would be yeah, reach out to us if it's something that interests you. I don't know.
I think it's amazing how like you can give like personality to these things, and you can give this like history of memory to AI. It's very easily these days, right? Yeah, like we must be super close where the vast majority of social media is just played with AI agents that have their own personality and their own kind of like culture talking to each other. Kind of God help us, I guess, for humanity.
Right, I could just see it. Yeah, teenage son mint. Oh, I can't even think about that. Like, yeah, having to manage the foibles of extra, family on chain could be interesting. But yeah, we're leading up to this point. I see that a lot of kind of thought leaders and experts are kind of converging on this idea that the AGI or the ASI, it could be a mixture of agents in the end. So it's really, I think, being on the forefront of that wave of this proliferation and of agents and AI advancements and all the research that's going into it is just super exciting at the moment. I'm sure you feel the same, James.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, we're at time. I did just want to give you a chance, James. Do you want to just give us a quick bullet points on what's coming up for SubQuery?
Yeah, so we're working on this framework. We're improving it. We've got a lot of feature requests. As I mentioned, we've dog food this ourselves, so we're finding it useful. But we're also working with other partners in terms of finding out what they find useful, and that's going directly into our product roadmap. Our goal is that these can run on our network, as I mentioned before. But we're going to add in new features and new examples, new kind of like helpful tools that allow other teams in Web3 that have the same problems to build using this framework much faster and easier than they would otherwise. So really, on the roadmap is getting this out there with many teams, talking about what we can do, whether it's like Telegram integration or Discord integration, and basically going out and building those kind of things.
That's wonderful. Yeah. So I'll be keeping an eye. I'll star your repo, and I'll be keeping an eye on developments, James. Maybe there's so we leverage the ELIZA framework, for example. So this collaboration, as you said earlier, we stand on the shoulders of giants to accelerate what we can do. But yeah, maybe there's a future where we're using SubQuery decentralized AI inference to drive our on-chain memories with SubQuery mint further down the line. But very quickly, coming up for Autonomys, we are progressing towards mainnet phase 2. We recently released our roadmap. It's on our forum if you want to check that out. We are also prepping for Stake Wars 2. We are planning to host a hackathon at East Denver, which is about in almost exactly a month. Because really we're trying to build our developer outreach program, and Emil, as our developer community manager, is going to be sharing plans on that very soon. Are you going to East Denver, James?
Stage, our team will be having an offsite in Hong Kong around the Consensus Week, which is I think the same time, unfortunately. So we'll be missing East Denver, but there'll be many other events, I'm sure, later in the year that we'll be at.
Absolutely. So yeah, so our CMO has the same problem. He's going to be in Hong Kong while we're at East Denver. So I feel for you there. And yeah, obviously we'll also be enhancing the autonomous agent framework. Actually, we're going to be moving towards what we're calling the rapid agent platform, which we're hoping takes us from having to kind of contend with Git commands right down to either low code or no code agent deployment. So watch this space. Yeah, I really want to thank you today, James. Thanks for joining us. I think really for both of us, the power of our ecosystem, it lies in its builders, the thinkers and the doers out there. And I see that both of our projects, we're aiming to support them on every step of the way. So yeah, I want to thank everyone who joined us, or if you're catching up later. use our frameworks to help push the boundaries of what's possible. So until next time, build boldly and stay connected, guys. Thanks very much, James.
Thank you very much, Jim, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
You too. Thank you.